has fully reopened. Every year group is allowed back today. All staff are meant to be back today, unless of course they're not fully vaccinated. I heard that there were some tweaks to that rule, but I'm not exactly sure on them. The last thing was that a teacher needed to be double vaccinated by November 8th, or they were no longer considered employed by the department. If you're a temporary teacher, you had your temporary contract terminated. And if you're a casual teacher, your name was put onto the not to be employed list. That's just with the Department of Education, so in all fairness, I don't know what the private system, the Catholic system, or the independent system is like. They could probably still hire staff, but it's an interesting predicament. They will get several warnings and stuff, and I think the first of those letters will have already gone out. I've obviously had a little bit of anxiety about this. I woke up really early. I think I woke up at a little bit before 4. Couldn't get back to sleep. I mean, my alarm is set for 5 or 20 past 5. I could not get back to sleep. So I watched the last 2 episodes of What If? Episode 8 and 9. After hearing the Making Geeks talk about it yesterday on the podcast. It was still good to watch. They didn't ruin it completely. I feel happy about going back to work because I'll be on site. It's really hard being a woodwork and construction teacher remotely. We learn more by doing. We're actually doing things. You're teaching kids a skill and watching them learn it, develop it. Designing can still happen online, and theory and knowledge development and that sort of stuff, but practical skills need to be practiced. That all said, my school is in an area of concern. I know when I was most recently looking up suburbs of concern and that sort of thing, they were only showing regional ones. They stopped showing ones in Greater Sydney, and that was, I found that incredibly infuriating because our cases were sort of climbing and still quite high out in regional Australia, and so they would say like this shop is an area of concern around this time, you know, this petrol station, and it's quite often petrol stations and grocery stores. But none of that was being shown in Greater Sydney anymore. So there could be cases up the mountains and you wouldn't know where. Cases did drop, they were under 300. Heading in, masks on, I didn't see any change to that. We still have to have muster via Zoom even though we're all on site. The principal asked our director about whether we would be able to do our old socially distanced muster that we were doing last year, which was, and the start of this year, muster in one of our big blocks and on the ground floor, and there's an open mezzanine type floor, and so everybody would just be in there spread out so you could still have that meeting. But I think there's the concern that people would think they wouldn't be able to be heard, they would take their mask off to talk, and then that could be concerning because you're projecting your voice in an enclosed area. And our director said to the principal, nope, you've got way too many people in that area for it to be okay. But in the general movement around the school, it's going to be good to see work colleagues again in person, and it will be good to see the students, however many show up. That's the biggest thing. How many of our kids? We've only technically got 7 through 11 in, so that's 500 odd kids in total. Feels good to be back in this room.
trying to get the kids through their clusters. I've marked stuff, I've turned it in and explained the ways that we can get them through the course. Changes to work placement. Went through a little bit of our welfare course or units that were written up for the fact that we're just starting back up. This is only day 2. Kids are chatty, but they seem to be taking the time to listen to some of the changes and what's going on. It's been a weird 4 months not seeing them. Year 11, they're kind of allowed to be in a little bit of different rooms. The H block is this block. Year 11 is mainly in this block. Some of the rooms have been rearranged, like they're doing English, maths, all those sort of things over here. But they've said, okay, if they've actually got a subject that's in this area, let's go into their actual room. And I'm really hoping that we can get into prac soon. That depends on the government's rules with what they can do.
One week down, having all the kids back at school, they've been pretty good. We haven't had every kid, but when I think about my year 11 construction class, 11 out of the 16 back at school. While we're constrained by the, not having cohorts mix and staff moving around and that sort of thing, at least with the year 11s, I'm able to get into our workshop as our classroom. But we've got to do a lot of catch up on cluster B. That was the one that I gave it to them just before we went on holidays in term 2, and because it's predominantly a theory-based topic, I had a feeling that they should be able to do a fair bit of it from home. I'd given them some resources, Google Classroom videos, that sort of stuff, but we've got to do a bit of catch up. The construction course is changing due to the national training package changing, and so year 11 from next year will be starting the new course, but they've said that the current year 11 going into 12 will have to pick up the new course halfway through, which means that their cluster task could be different. So I'm a little bit edgy on starting them on the new clusters, on the current clusters, in case we've got to restart. So we have a construction network meeting in a week and a half to find out about all of that. It's overcast at the moment, but it was already 20 degrees at the house. We're meant to get to a top of 32 down at school. We haven't had too much trouble with the kids wearing masks, but if it gets stinking hot today, I can see a lot of them just going, it's too hot, I can't breathe in it. I've got construction first period. Oh, it's already 20 degrees at the house, which means it's going to be warmer there by 9 o'clock down at work. And it will be interesting to see if this weekend, whether they change the restrictions for schools. And of course, it's already happened, but the restrictions have only basically been lifted for not even 2 weeks. And there was a gym in Double Bay, I believe, in Sydney, that had a sudden spate of 15 people all testing positive. It's interesting times. made it through 1 week of school. Everybody felt like that at the end of the week, and we'll see what happens next week. My biggest thing will be to see if health or education decide to change any of the rules for this coming week. I haven't read yesterday's sit rep yet. Last night, wife was finding a few bargains on Facebook Marketplace, and has organised for me to go out and collect them all. And they're at several spots on the way down the mountain, so I've just collected the first one. They're all freebies. I'm heading down to collect the second one, which is another plant, another yucca, which we have, one of which we got, it was a while ago, and then some fencing panels, like it's basically white metal panels and a gate, 12-13 metres worth of panels plus the gate. So we're thinking about where we could use it, whether to use it for the privacy yard in the backyard, or because it's not long enough to go across the front yard as a front fence, but we'll figure something out. Got the trailer on the back for the fencing, and depending on the size of the yucca, it might fit in the back seat. Otherwise it'll sit in the tray and I'll just strap it in. Well, I said this was going to change, so the little fern we've put into a pot over there. We've got the monsteras planted in around these ferns because they'll get a little bit of shade from them. The big agave that was just there, I moved, and then this agave was one that was up the hill, sort of leaving this a little bit more open. That big agave is now over there. There's the two yuccas that I went and picked up that my wife had found on Marketplace. The little skinny one is the one that we had sort of pot bound, so that's been planted in there. That's a different type of yucca, and so that's where the agave was that is now up in behind here. Starting to look fairly nice. And again, this is all my wife's planting. I'm just the grunt, but the green up against the fence looks really nice. These two big yuccas were one awesome find that she got. The people wanted them moved because they were planted around their pool and they were spiky and they kept getting stabbed as they walked around the pool.